We talked about the news brought by 10.2.6 as well as the first initial data mining of Season 4. We mentioned the mini rework of Holy Priest. We mentioned the tuning given to the dungeons coming back for Season 4. For today, we have a few leftovers in terms of announced changes or simply data mined effects. What we have data mined first is the possible or very likely return of the Dinar in Season 4. Now, for those who have deserted Shadowlands or just the last season of Shadowlands, the Dinar was a deterministic reward in the raid where after defeating a certain number of bosses, which initially was 30 bosses, which was supposed to take you 4 weeks to complete, basically a month, and then you could get the second quest, which only required you 20 bosses to defeat, and then the third quest, only 10 bosses to defeat, to give you 3 dinars. You could go with the 3 dinars to the vendors and then quite literally buy basically any raid item you wanted. Now, even though in the data mining it says that the total cap is 1 and the weekly cap is 0, this might very just simply refer to the quest. The quest giving you 1 dinar and then the quest being repeatable up to 3 times. If this is the case, it would mean pretty much you can already start pick and choosing your 2 best in slot trinkets and your best in slot weapon, and those will be your purchases of your dinar. It's of course a quite handy system, especially if we have the raid rotating like we did in Shadowlands. Imagine if you really want the Grief Torch trinket from Diurna. Well, you have 1 chance every 3 weeks, because 1 week Aberrus is active and you can't get the Grief Torch, the week after that you have Mirdrasil active and you can't get the Grief Torch, and then the week after that you have Vault, and that's your only chance in 3 weeks to get that Grief Torch. So with the addition of the Dinar, you have a much more safe, a fail-safe mechanism for you to guarantee the item you want, to be able to just straight up buy that. We already had the pseudo confirmation of Eon when he mentioned that they don't think that the system was too generous in Shadowlands. So we have reason to continue to believe we're still gonna get our 3 dinars in Season 4. Talking about additions in Season 4, we have some reworked trinkets. Now, you might be wondering what these are, or perhaps you only remember these because you were quite disappointed if you saw them dropping or being offered in a Great Vault, because these were all notoriously just garbage trinkets, not really played by many players. To be fair, the majority of these do look still completely garbage, with a couple of exceptions. You have the perhaps usefulness of the Umbraskull's Fractured Heart, because now instead of being a dot which can explode if the enemy dies, now it turns into an execute if the mob drops below 5% HP. And if it dies, the dot can spread to a nearby enemy, which can then also insta-die if it drops below 5% HP. This can be relevant because, of course, mobs scale their HP over key levels, so at a certain key level, getting 5% of a mob's HP to just go away instantly can start to mean, 1, 2, 3 million damage done instantly by this trinket. So this could have some cool interactions in Mythic Plus due to scaling with the mob's health, which is what scales in Mythic Plus. The other 3 trinkets, the 2 DPS trinket and the healer trinket, are still reasonably garbage. They have slightly changed them. They turned Globe of Jagged Eyes from a 30-second cooldown to a 2-minute cooldown, but none of these 3 seems to be particularly exciting in Season 4 to use, especially when you consider you have 3 different raids to choose juicy trinkets from. You have Pip's trinket as a stat stick, you have the Chromatic Essence as a stat stick from Aberrus, you have the Incarnate Icon as a stat stick from Vault, then you have things like Grief Torch, you still have Belorelos, you have the Icon, the Brand, so plenty of other super OP DPS trinkets, so it's unlikely to see any of these to be particularly strong, so it's unlikely to imagine these, even reworked to be any relevant. Where the relevance might come is in Granite's Enduring Scale and Inexorable Resonator. Why? Because they have been turned into Absorb Shields. In the case of Granite's Enduring Scale, this one at the item level you will get in Season 4, which will be around 520 more or less. You will get a 1.4 million Absorb Shield on a 2-minute cooldown, which is a chunky absorb shield, even for our increased HP we will get in Season 4. The same can be said more or less for the Inexorable Resonator, which once brought over to the appropriate Season 4 item level will get a 1 million absorb shield on a 90-second cooldown. It's definitely worse though, since it procs automatically when you drop below 75% HP. So these two can be quite good. They can be quite the help to some of the more squishy specs, perhaps some of the healers who are worrying more about staying alive, rather than, for example, going for a DPS trinket perhaps. At the very least, it's good to see some of the more, underused trinkets coming in the next rotation of dungeons to get at least an update over their previous, basically underplayed version. Talking about being underplayed, that's not likely what the Legendaries will be in Season 4. This is a question many players have had, related to not just the most recent two-handed axe legendary, but also about the Evoker legendary from Season 2. We have gotten the first data mining of the Scale of Awakening, of course one for the Evoker and the other one for the axe, which will allow you to upgrade your legendary up to item level 502 and allowing it to be upgraded further. So it's going to remain relevant in Season 4. Now, the one thing that perhaps is interesting is that the 502 item level, Blizzard already gave us their conversion of item level, basically confirming that the item level jump will be 39 item levels. So technically speaking, 502 would be the plus 39 item level equivalent of 463. 463 is right here, is the 4 out of 8 champion upgrade track level, meaning that the item would be upgradable all the way up to the equivalent of 476, meaning 515 item level. So this is where your legendary would cap, technically speaking, even though the max item level of Season 4 will go up to 528. So your legendary won't be the max item level of the season like it's normal for the axe in this season or for the one-handed weapon of the evokers in Season 2. Instead, it will be actually at lower item level than your other average items. Still, of course, being legendaries means they are likely still going to continue to be the best in slot option, even if their item level won't be nearly as high. The last of the bits of announced changes are some nerfs, a couple of nerfs to the two of the more annoying of the affixes still remaining in Season 4, Afflicted and Incorporeal. Afflicted gets a 2-second longer cast time, so it takes them now 12 seconds to get off their cast time, and then Incorporeal now spawns closer to the group's general location. This might be the better one of the changes, right? You might be used now to some party wiping Incorporeals because they spawn, around the wall and the opposite side of the boss room in the worst possible moment, and now you have to worry about running to the Incorporeal mob to even reach it in the first place. We actually don't know how much closer means in this statement, but let's just assume it means within range, within 30 yards of at least one player, meaning that whenever this one spawns, it will be in range to be crowd controlled basically immediately as soon as it's out. It still, of course, will create some annoyances like spawning around the corner, above the stairs, below the stairs, create some line of sight fuckery, but at the very least now it will be closer, which is easier to deal with. So out of all of the data mined, prepared changes for Season 4, these were the other ones we have missed out on in our previous couple of videos about the changes. The addition of the Dinar, the 6 updated / reworked trinkets, the returning or the continuation of the legendaries available also in Season 4, as well as the nerfing of Afflicted and Incorporeal. These are all the changes we have for today. We are going to continue to update, of course, the videos with however many changes and additions we continue to track from Season 4 of Dragonflight. And for today, we can now leave each other in peace. Thanks, of course, as usual, to all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel, which can, as usual, also be given for free, like liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching, see you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, interesting, almost as if you didn't expect it, it started to be quite warmer right at the beginning of spring.